Today, INC celebrates its 100th episode. 5 years which have seen us face the highs, the lows, and nearly getting shut down by one championship. What better way to celebrate this landmark achievement than taking another look at the video that started it all? Welcome to the INC, and these are the 10 most undeserved title shots in UFC history. Number 10, Yoel Romero. With his mountainous physique and explosive knockouts, Yoel Romero was one of the most feared fighters of the late 2010s. By the turn of the decade, the Cuban's aura had started to fade, thanks to a combination of 3 losses in his past 4 fights and his constant failure to make weight for his title bouts. This, however, wasn't enough to deter the UFC, who named Romero the first challenger to Israel Adesanya at UFC 248. With the division's most technical striker taking on its hardest, fans penciled the match as a potential fight of the year contender. What they got instead was this. Outside of a few sporadic flurries, Romero was largely inactive for the majority of the fight, with Adesanya doing just enough in the eyes of the judges to claim a malign decision. Romero's performance, added with him turning down multiple fights in the months after, led to him being released by the promotion that December. Number 9, Dan Henderson. There are a few fighters more beloved than Dan Henderson, a former Pride and Strikeforce champion known for his all-action wars and highlight reel knockouts. By 2016, however, Henderson was a 45-year-old journeyman desperately clinging to his place in the middleweight rankings, when he was given a title shot against Michael Bisping at UFC 204. The origins of the fight came from UFC 100, when Henderson handed Bisping his first stoppage loss with one of the greatest knockouts of all time. And with Bisping now champ after his upset win over Luke Rockhold, the UFC saw a golden opportunity to run the fight back. Henderson managed to roll back the years by dropping Bisping twice in the first 2 rounds, only for the Brit's volume striking and improved conditioning seeing him claim a unanimous decision. Henderson retired immediately after the fight, having given the fans one last highlight on his way into the sunset. Number 8, The Ultimate Fighter winners. The Ultimate Fighter has been the starting point for several UFC title challengers, although few with the immediacy as the 3 on our list. After 3 successful TUF seasons, The Ultimate Fighter tweaked its format for Season 4, allowing UFC veterans axed by the promotion to compete for a title shot in their respective weight class, with Travis Lutter claiming the spoils at middleweight and Matt Serra at welterweight. The 2 men enjoyed mixed blessings in their matches, with Lutter being submitted by Anderson Silva, while Serra claimed a first-round win over George St. Pierre in one of the biggest upsets in company history. 9 years later, the UFC revived the gimmick for Season 24, where 16 regional flyweight champions competed for a shot against Division King Demetrius Johnson. Tim Elliott, a Titan FC champion who flamed out of his first UFC run, surpassed his rivals to earn the crack at Mighty Mouse. And despite coming close to finishing the fight with a Darce, he faltered to a unanimous decision. While Serra and Elliott both found success in their fights, the gimmicky nature of how they earned their shots books their place on our list. Number 7, Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal was the talk of the town going into 2020. A trio of high-profile wins saw the former journeyman become one of the sport's biggest stars, and leading to a short-notice title shot against Kamaru Usman on Fight Island. Usman dominated the fight on his way to a unanimous decision, but when the company announced UFC 261 would take place in front of a live crowd, Masvidal's star power and hometown fighter status saw him given a second crack at the belt. Despite a stronger showing, Masvidal remained second best to his illustrious opponent, a gap Usman further widened early in the second round.
And of all the superlatives,
in an Uno reverse card of his 2020 year, things would only get worse for Masvidal, losing a grudge match to Colby Covington at UFC 272, while his recent arrest for assault leaves him desperately hanging on to his goodwill. Number 6, Andrei Pedernes. Andrei Pedernes is regarded as one of the greatest jiu-jitsu practitioners of all time. A 6-time Brazilian national champion before helping guide BJ Penn, Jose Aldo, and Renan Barão to success over the past 20 years. The less said about his MMA career, however, the better. Pedernes made his MMA bow competing in a Vale Tudo event in 1998. While the Brazilian claimed a stoppage win over Rumina Sato, it came as a shock when he was announced to face welterweight champion Pat Miletich at UFC 21. While this kind of matchmaking would have been forgiven in the UFC's early years, by 1999 the sport had moved on from one-discipline specialists. Miletich dominated a one-sided fight before a doctor stoppage was called 2 minutes into the first. Pedernes would fight twice more in MMA before turning his attention to coaching. His record of getting a title shot in his second pro fight will likely never be repeated. Number 5. Holly Holm. If you need a bigger example of star power trumping merit, look no further than Holly Holm. Holm has been one of the UFC's most popular fighters since her company debut in 2015, allowing her to frequently jump the queue in the frugal women's divisions. All of Holm's title shots have a claim to being on this list, earning a shot at Ronda Rousey off of a 2-fight winning streak, before matches with Chris Cyborg and Amanda Nunes, despite alternating wins and losses. Holm's most undeserved shot came at UFC 208, when she took on Germaine de Randamie for the inaugural featherweight title. This despite Holm having never fought at the weight class and coming off of losses in her past 2 fights. De Randamie would beat the Preacher's Daughter by unanimous decision, but not before one of the worst late punches in MMA history.
That was after the bell. That was late. That was late and it was hard. And that clearly wobbled Holly.
Holm is currently riding a 2-fight winning streak, enough to earn her a couple more title shots over the next 3 years. Number 4. Bethe Correia. By the summer of 2015, Ronda Rousey was at the height of her powers. The bantamweight champion was riding an 11-fight winning streak, with all but one of her wins coming in the first round, and leaving the UFC short of options for her next title challenger. Step forward, Bethe Correia, a former accountant who first entered MMA as a means of losing weight, before being signed to the UFC after going unbeaten on the regional scene. After beating Rousey's teammates Shayna Baszler and Jessamyn Duke, Correia began marketing herself as the sport's horsewoman killer, and a high-profile grudge match between her and the champion was penciled for UFC 190. While Correia did a good job promoting the fight, many felt she lacked the talent level to pose a threat to Rousey. A fear proven right, as the champion took just 36 seconds to finish her overmatched opponent. Correia endured several missteps after the fight, many of them self-inflicted, before announcing her retirement, having gone 2-6 post-Rousey. Number 3. Chael Sonnen. There's an old adage that you don't write checks your body can't cash. It's safe to say Chael Sonnen ignored these warnings. Sonnen was regarded as one of the greatest middleweights of the mid-2000s, but after a pair of losses to division king Anderson Silva, his road to a UFC title was all but over. After Dan Henderson withdrew from a light heavyweight title match with Jon Jones, Sonnen offered himself as a short-notice replacement, and while the first title match would fall through, the UFC saw a payday and booked Jones vs. Sonnen for UFC 159. This despite Sonnen not fighting in the class for 8 years and 11 months removed from his loss to Silva. While Sonnen talked a big match in the pre-fight build, he couldn't deliver on the trash talk. Jones dominated the fight on his way to a first-round stoppage, even if his body did try to get in the way.
Oh, he's got a broken foot. Oh, man. Wow. Jon Jones has a broken foot, ladies and gentlemen, and it's pretty bad, and he just realized it.
Chael would fight twice more in the UFC before being axed by the promotion following a failed drug test. A visit to the Bellator retirement home soon followed, but that story's for another time. Number 2. Jon Lobar. As the UFC entered its dark age, finding fighters willing to compete for the promotion proved increasingly difficult. A former training partner of Tito Ortiz, Jon Lobar made his MMA debut as an acclaimed wrestler, but by 1998 was riding a 6-fight winless streak competing for the Japanese promotion Pancrase. So why was the Californian given a light heavyweight title shot against Frank Shamrock at UFC Brazil? The origins stemmed to a match in 1997, when Lobar beat a rookie Shamrock at a Super Brawl event in Hawaii, a loss Shamrock later described as a turning point in his career. There would be no repeat for Lobar, as a more composed Shamrock made easy work of his opponent before finishing by strikes 7 minutes into the fight. It wouldn't be the last time the UFC allowed a fighter to get a win back, as the company pulled a washed Jeremy Horn from the regionals to allow Chuck Liddell to avenge the first loss of his pro career. Lobar attempted a comeback to the sport in 2006, but one win in his last 4 fights saw him retire from the sport with a 5-9 record. Number 1. Brock Lesnar. The man who topped our first list does so again 5 years later. The next big thing. Brock Lesnar first made his name working for the WWE in 2002, quickly rising through the ranks to become one of the company's biggest stars, before transitioning to MMA, where he claimed a first-round win over Min Soo Kim. After just one pro fight, Lesnar was signed by the UFC in 2007, losing his company debut to Frank Mir before a unanimous decision win over a washed Heath Herring. This was enough to satisfy the UFC, who gave Lesnar a title shot against heavyweight champion Randy Couture at UFC 91. While the fight helped alleviate a contract dispute between Couture and the UFC, most saw the fight as the company cashing in on Lesnar's mainstream popularity, with many believing the company damaged their credibility in handing such an opportunity to a 2-1 fighter. An oversized Lesnar stuffed all of Couture's takedown attempts in the first round, before a straight right in the middle of the second led to one of the most unlikely champions in UFC history.
Brock Lesnar is the new UFC heavyweight champion of the world!
Lesnar justified his place as an elite fighter with wins over Shane Carwin and avenging his loss to Frank Mir, but the contrived manner in how he got the chance in the first place proves too difficult for fans to ignore. And now, time for a few honorable mentions. Frankie Edgar suffered a pair of losses to lightweight champ Benson Henderson, but was still given a crack at featherweight king Jose Aldo at UFC 156. Every title challenger at women's featherweight. Jessica Ai earned a flyweight title shot off of a trio of split decision wins. Still, at least she's got her fans.
Here we go, Evo! Here we go! Oh, oh.
Alright, ready? Let's go!
This is the INC. Please like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a video. INC fans, thank you so much for your continued support.